Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. We start today's video with neighbors who built an illegal fence so close to the curb it made parking impossible, and then tried to dump their problem on everyone else. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. They built an illegal fence, then made it my problem. We live on a very narrow neighborhood street. I'm talking barely 2 cars passing kind of narrow. Because of that, parking's only allowed on one side of the road, and naturally, that's the side our house is on. No driveway, no garage, street parking is all we've got. For the first couple of years, it worked out fine. Everyone kind of respected the unspoken rule. You park in front of your own house unless you absolutely have to do otherwise. It wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. And then our next-door neighbors decided to build a fence. And not just any fence. This thing was massive, taller than code allowed, ugly as sin, and here's the kicker, they built it all the way to the curb. I mean, I don't think there were 4 inches between the edge of the pavement and the face of that fence. You could barely walk between it and a parked car without turning sideways like you were squeezing through a canyon wall. Because of how close it was to the street, it completely ruined the ability to park in front of their house. It was already a tight street, but now, if someone parked there, a passenger literally couldn't open their door. And backing in, forget it. You'd have to do a 12-point turn and pray you didn't scrape your bumper. But fine, whatever. It was illegal, sure, but try to live by a simple rule. If it's not directly affecting me, I let it slide. Live and let live, right? Except, of course, it did start affecting me, because instead of parking in front of their own house, they started parking in front of ours. Now remember, this is a street where only one side has legal parking, so if they're parked in front of our house, that means we have nowhere to park except, in front of their fence from hell, which meant we now had to struggle with the same impossible parking angles they created for themselves. So one evening, after coming home and circling the block twice just to wedge my car into a ridiculous spot, I walked over and knocked on their door. They opened it, friendly enough at first, and I said something like, "Hey, could you please not park in front of our house anymore? We don't have any other options for parking, and it's been really hard to get a spot lately." That's when the switch flipped. They got defensive immediately. "Well, we can't park in front of our house," the wife said. "The fence makes it really hard to get out of the car, and it makes the dogs bark when people park there." I just stood there for a second, blinking, because what? So I said, "Okay, but you built the fence. That's not our problem." And that's when the words came out of my mouth before I could even filter them. "You've taken your problem and solved it by making it our problem. That's not okay." I told them straight, if their own fence made it inconvenient to park there, it was on them. They could either park there anyway or they could take the fence down, but parking in front of our house and leaving us stranded wasn't an acceptable solution. And then I added very calmly, "Also, your fence isn't built to code, so if this continues, I'll just call the city's building department in the morning and they can help you fix it." Their faces went pale. They knew exactly what that meant. They didn't say much after that, just sort of muttered something about "fine, whatever," and closed the door. But guess what? They stopped parking in front of our house. They hated us after that. No more neighborly small talk, no waves from the porch, just glares. Fine by me. A few months later, they sold the house, moved out without a word. The new owners, absolute gems. First thing they did was tear down the fence and replace it with one that actually made sense, set back properly from the curb, low enough to see over, and designed so that parking in front of their house was no longer a nightmare. Now we all park in front of our own houses, the street feels bigger, the dogs don't bark, and we actually like our neighbors again. Funny how one little fence caused so much chaos. In the end, all it took was calling out their nonsense and reminding them that they weren't above the rules. Their stubbornness literally drove them out, and the neighborhood is better for it. And our second story. Don't want me splitting up my breaks to help coworkers? Won't happen again. Back when I was in my mid-30s, I needed some extra cash for a lawyer bill, so I picked up an extra job at a national chain hobby store that I won't name, but it has a rhyming 2-word name that lets you know it's a hobby shop. I chose here because they close on Sundays, and they happen to pay a couple of bucks above minimum wage at the time. It was perfect. I'd work a few evenings during the week, then a full shift on Saturday doing just basic stocking and cleaning stuff. I didn't really care what I was doing there, and I ended up becoming everyone's preferred helper since I never said no unless I was in the middle of something else that had a higher priority. I would even interrupt my breaks to help someone out if they needed it. When that happened, I'd note the time and be sure to make up my missed break time when I was finished helping the person out. I even did this for the manager, let's call him John, from time to time with no complaints. It didn't bother me at all. I had my professional career and the temp work wasn't too difficult or degrading. I ended up working there longer than I needed to pay the lawyer bill, and I just stuck the extra cash toward paying off some other debt we had at the time. Everything was fine until one time John saw me in the break room again taking what he assumed was another break. Naturally, he asked about it, and I explained that coworker X needed my help with something, so I helped her and now was taking the rest of my 15-minute break. John didn't like that and told me that I could not split my breaks anymore. I had to take the 15 minutes all at once. Okay, if you say so. I didn't care, but it really impacted my coworkers, although they understood why I would not interrupt my break anymore. The real kicker came one Tuesday night when I was the only stalker working. The only other employees were 2 teenage girls as cashiers and John. I just sat down for my break a minute earlier when John poked his head into the break room to tell me I needed to go pull a chest off of a high shelf for a customer. They'd already paid for it and were waiting for someone to load it into their car. I turned my head so I could look at the break room clock and told him I'd get right on it in another 13 minutes. He said they needed me now, and I reminded him that I was not allowed to split my breaks and also noted that he was interrupting my break. To make my point even clearer, I stood up and walked around to the other side of the table so I could sit down with my back to John. After the 13 minutes passed, I went up to the front to find the customers so I could get their chest and stick it in their car. I didn't see John, but a cashier told me that they didn't wait and ended up getting a refund on the purchase. Not sure why John didn't get the chest down himself. It wasn't that difficult. Anyway, John wasn't too happy with me after that, and I didn't stay much longer either. I'd earned my cash and didn't need that job by then. There's nothing like the feeling of working because you want to, and knowing deep down that at the end of the day, if the fun stops, you can stop without worry. And our next story. Walmart changed our hours without asking, so I changed my availability without asking. I shared a story about when a manager forced me to fill the soda machines at work instead of getting carts, which made me think of another time I used Walmart rules to get back at management for trying to screw over the other stockmen and me. Our Walmart was open 24 hours, and the stockmen were scheduled for different shifts ranging from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. to gather carts and do other jobs. After 11 p.m., it fell to third shift to take over those duties. Walmart management always wanted the associates, that's what Walmart preferred to call its employees, to work open shifts from 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. They would say that if you only worked closed shifts, they could give you fewer hours because you only wanted to work certain hours. So my fellow stockmen and I all had these open shifts. One year around Christmas time, we all noticed we were being scheduled until midnight instead of 11 p.m., which is when our shifts were supposed to end. When we asked management about it, they told us it was only because of the holiday rush, and once Christmas was over, we'd go back to our usual hours. But after Christmas passed, we were still being scheduled until midnight. One day, while I was working, I asked around why we were still being scheduled until midnight. Someone let it slip that third shift didn't want to get carts after we left, so they complained to management, asking them to schedule us until midnight because they didn't want to do it anymore. Now, I know what you're thinking. We're not doing our job and leaving at 11 with everything being a disaster, but that's not the case. We always had the place caught up by 11. The problem was that all of second shift ended at 11 p.m., and then they would get carts and do some shopping after work while there were still customers around. So by 11:30, the carts would be out in the parking lot again. Third shift had to send people out to bring them in. When the stockman closed, only one of us was getting things caught up, and we were supposed to be on our own. However, third shift would have 6 or 7 people go out and get the carts. With that many people doing the job, it was a quick task. Well, I decided if they were going to go behind our backs and change our schedule just because another group didn't want to do their job anymore, I was going to do something about it behind theirs. Here's the fun part. I used Walmart's own policies to get my old shift back. If you had to change your shifts, Walmart couldn't ask you why you needed a different schedule and couldn't schedule you to work past the time you said you could work. If they did, you could fight it, and they had to work with you to make it right. So all I did was change my availability from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. to 11 p.m. That 1 hour change basically returned me to my old shift. Since it was only a 1 hour change, I was still available for any shift they needed me for, but they just couldn't schedule me until midnight. Then all the other stockmen saw that I was working only until 11 p.m. again, and they asked me what I did to make that happen. I told them I just changed my availability to 11 p.m. Next thing you know, they all did the same thing, and whenever a new person started with us, we told them to change their availability so they wouldn't try to pull the same thing on them. The best part, months later, as I was leaving Walmart, one of the third shift people asked me why the stockmen weren't staying until midnight anymore. I just smugly told him that we all changed our availability to 11 p.m. You should have seen the look on his face when I told him. It was indeed glorious. Sounds like the corporation was happy to let the workers fight among themselves. What a shock. Let me guess, the brand you worked for did not actively promote trade unionism and unity in their workforce? And our last story. Karen threatened to get me fired from my own restaurant. When my ex-husband and I opened our tiny 28-seat restaurant, we were young, naive, and way too optimistic. He ran the kitchen solo while I handled the front, and in those first few months, we built up a great base of regulars. People got to know me because I was the face they saw every night, hustling drinks and plates while he cranked out food in the back. After a few months, when we finally hired staff, I moved into the kitchen where I felt more comfortable, while my husband popped out to schmooze customers and chat about wine pairings. Naturally, new customers thought he was the sole owner, and people stopped recognizing me when I came out to help bartend or cover service. And that's when the Karens started crawling out of the woodwork. One Friday night, we're packed. I'm bartending because our usual guy was sick. In walks Karen, oversized sunglasses at night, fur coat in July, dragging along two friends who looked like they regretted being there already. She slammed her clutch onto the bar. Karen, 3 glasses of your finest red, and make them full pours. None of this stingy crap. I smiled politely. Sure, ma'am. Just so you know, we pour 5 ounces per glass. Karen, oh, I know the owner. He always gives me a double pour, for free. So don't try me. I stared at her, deadpan. Do you now? Funny, I've never seen you before. Karen, smirking, sweetheart, that's because I don't deal with staff. I deal with the owner. At that exact moment, my ex comes out from the kitchen to drop off a wine recommendation at the table. She waves her arms like she's signaling a rescue helicopter. Karen, darling, it's me. Tell your waitress I get the good pours. He looks over, totally confused. Who? Her face falls. The whole bar laughs. Embarrassed but doubling down, she sneers at me. Karen, you'll be sorry. I'm a VIP. I spend thousands here. Ma'am, we'd only been open for 4 months. I knew every face that kept us afloat, and hers wasn't one of them. But she wasn't done. She ordered a round of appetizers, scarfed half of them, then waved me over. Karen, these are disgusting. I want them comped. And more wine, full pours, or I'll have the owner fire you. I leaned in, smiling sweetly. You mean my husband? Go ahead, I'll wait. That shut her up for about 5 minutes. Then came the piece de resistance. She tried to walk out without paying. We'd just installed a grainy little security cam pointed at the front door. Karen strutted toward it with her 2 friends trailing like whipped dogs. I intercepted her at the host stand. Me, bill will be $146, cash or card. Karen shrieking, I told you I know the owner. This is an outrage. When I didn't budge, she whipped out her phone. Fine, I'm calling the police. You'll be sorry when they find out you tried to scam me. Enter the police. 20 minutes later, 2 officers showed up. One of them had clearly been called to restaurant disputes before because he already looked tired of life. Officer, ma'am, what seems to be the problem? Karen, gesturing wildly at me, she refused to give me what the owner promised. She overcharged me, insulted me, and now she's holding me hostage in this filthy place. The officer turned to me, is this true? I just grinned and pointed to the monitor showing her trying to sneak out the door. Then I gestured to my ex and his chef whites who came out with his arms crossed. Ex, yeah, hi, I'm the owner. She doesn't know me. She's not special. Please make her pay her bill or leave. The look on her face was pure defeat. The cops made her pay, but Karen being Karen, she had to get one last word in. She tossed her credit card at me like she was feeding pigeons. Karen, this place is a dump anyway. I'll have it shut down, you'll see. As her card went through, the officer deadpanned, ma'am, maybe next time just pay your bill. And don't lie about knowing the owner when his wife's standing right there. She grabbed her card, muttered something about lawsuits, and stormed out. Her two friends, bright red with embarrassment, tipped me extra on their way out. Karen never came back, but her legend sure stuck around. Karen's entire performance, from the oversized sunglasses at night to the claim of being a VIP who spends thousands at a brand new tiny restaurant, was a carefully constructed facade designed to intimidate and manipulate. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.